On today's crossover show between Locked On Rangers and Locked On Padres, we're talking about Rookie of the Year voting, a couple of snubs, and which one we'd rather have, and our most intriguing free agents. Talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers and Locked On Padres. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers and the San Diego Padres. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Joining me today is the hostess with the mostest, hoster with the moster, the poster with the moster, Javier Reyes, host of Locked On Padres. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good, man. Look, it's a cursed team, but a certain football team won for me on Sunday that I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of their quarterback. My husband, I should say, is the quarterback.
Get out of here with your quarterback talk. This is a baseball.
I know. I was gonna land the ship. Land the ship.
Land your ship.
And it was a reminder that if you know anything about those two teams, especially the one that won, that sometimes you feel like your team is cursed all the time, and then every now and then, every once in a while, you can break the curse, man. And I think that both of our teams are kind of living examples of that in different ways. Rangers being, I don't know, all the World Series from the lost World Series, and then just kind of being in the mud for a long time. One of your top prospects we're going to talk about not working out as you would have liked, and then spending, boom, you win a championship. And then Padres, basically irrelevant for a while, started spending, and now they're trying to turn the Padres into a villain. I've seen this lately. It feels like people are trying their best with this.
I want to say
overall,
that
man, it's just things
for
could change. Change the what's it called? Change the script. Flip the script.
Rewrite the script. Re-script. All that good stuff. Goodness gracious. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, our first topic today, talking about some Roy robbery. A couple of guys who I think each robbed at least one home run this year. A couple of outfielders on each of our teams not getting the votes we wished that they got. Jackson Merrill, the center fielder, shortstop turned center fielder of the San Diego Padres, finishing second in NL Rookie of the Year voting, and Wyatt Langford, who I believe on FanDuel at the beginning of the year was the AL Rookie of the Year favorite, finishing not in second, not third, not fourth, not fifth, not sixth, but 7th place in AL Rookie of the Year voting. Were you as floored by this as I was? Because I cannot believe 7th. I got not finishing in the top 3, but 7th?
I think this is a classic case of just the initial momentum not happening. I think that's really what it is. Now, 2.9 wins above replacement, at least according to FanGraphs. That's not like game breaking. I just think that he had too much of it
according to baseball.
Baseball reference. I think that the tools are obviously there. He's a really exciting player, but it happens later. And then I think that the Rangers being so out of it might have turned people off. I just, and frankly, I wasn't paying too much attention to American League Rookie of the Year. I was just so locked in on the National League one for obvious reasons. I think that's what it was. It's just the initial, fall down. I mean, to a similar extent, it was like the Jackson Holiday thing. Like Rookie of the Year stuff this year was, you had Churio for the National League, you had Jackson Holiday for the American, you have Wyatt Langford. Like it wasn't chalk, right? The American League and National League Rookie of the Year this year. So I think that's kind of fun. Even if that didn't go our way, you know what I mean? But I think that's what it was. I think it's just that he started off really, really shaky, especially considering like he had such a fast ascent in terms of like becoming more famous. Felt like it happened a little bit faster than usual, where it's like intriguing prospect and oh my God, this guy's a star, and then promoted. You know what I mean? Like I think that was part of it, is a little bit of the process. But hey, man, I don't want to beef too much with the voters. Frankly, the thing that I like beefing with voters more about is the Hall of Fame, and I think everyone can agree on that. But yeah, man, my condolences.
Absolutely. I mean, it was kind of interesting because I feel like there were at least like one or two guys that didn't get votes at all that I think definitely deserve votes. I mean, Lawrence Butler had an amazing season. I mean, basically from like July on, he was one of the better hitters in baseball, not just on the A's or among rookies. Like he was incredible for that 2-month stint, and I thought he deserved a little bit more love. But Luis Heel winning it, I was surprised by that. I was for sure thinking it was going to be Colton Cowser. And I think that this kind of leads me to
Close.
a take that I believe, I mean, 106 points total for Luis Heel, 101 points for Colton Cowser, 15 first place votes for Heel, 13 for Cowser. Only two other guys got first place votes. One of them was Mason Miller. One of them was Cade Smith of the Guardians. I think we need two different awards for Rookie of the Year. Two different for each league, pitcher and hitter, because comparing these guys, it's just so difficult. It is like I'm like I don't know how to weigh 150 innings of being a pretty good starter on the Yankees versus being a really really good outfielder with some pop and some defense. It's just like it feels too difficult for me to compare those. Is that how you're feeling after Paul Skenes had? It took a historic season for Paul Skenes to win Rookie of the Year. And even then, it wasn't unanimous.
I think it's, I mean, you could borrow from the NFL, from the top of the podcast I was mentioning and alluding to before. Like, they have Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm pretty sure. They have Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm pretty sure. So maybe that's part of it. Just this is, like you said, it's just too hard to complain. Because a lot of people, especially Padres fans, have been bringing up, like, wow. And I agree with them just to further the agenda sometimes. But they've been bringing up a lot. Like Merrill plays every day. He had the most, like it was, I think it's game tying or go ahead homers in the 8th inning or later amongst like any player in years with 6, was basically the catalyst for the Padres sweeping all through July and August the way they did and becoming such a juggernaut. And is a guy who is 21, a guy who never played center field in his life really before. And then all of a sudden he might be a Gold Glove nominee. Like all that stuff really matters. The team really desperately needed him. And then Padres will bring up, it's like Jackson Merrill or Paul Skenes, like, wow, 12 and a half games out of the wild card. You struck out 12 Reds today. Wow, this matters. You know what I mean? But I don't think that that's what, you know what I mean? I actually use the team context more for MVP personally. I think that just matters more. Well, this is like, let's just view it in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Because half the time rookies are on teams that are great because they were bad. So I don't want to like, you know what I mean? I don't want to be giving who's another nominee for the
Luis Heel and I think Austin Wells both got a little bit more love because they were Yankees, because the Yankees were winning. I mean, Austin Wells, very good defensive catcher, offensive numbers, not that great. I mean, it's hard to be a good offensive catcher, let alone a rookie offensive catcher. And people are like, oh, well, he's doing it for the Yankees. I mean, come on.
Got a little bit unlucky with the offense, I will say, but no, agreed.
Yeah, and I'm curious because I love Wyatt Langford, and I don't think he's really caring all that much about Rookie of the Year, even though this is the one award that really means anything to me because it does result in a draft pick, and that's the only reason that I care about it now. But in terms of the guys that are rookies this year in either league, I think there's really, for me, the ceiling on Langford is so incredibly high, and he won AL Player of the Month in September, not just Rookie of the Month, but Player of the Month. And I think his ceiling is higher than just about anybody else in this rookie class. And the guys who I would take ahead of him of the next 5 years under contract, I think the list for me probably starts and ends with Skenes, but Jackson Merrill is the one guy who I think it's close because Merrill is a year younger than him, because he is already playing a little bit better defense than Langford, which is insane because he was a shortstop until like spring training. They said, oh, hey, you want to just be our everyday center fielder? And he said, sure, no problem. And was just amazing at it from the get-go, which I think for me is the most impressive part of Merrill's rookie season as an outsider. Just this guy was a shortstop, and then he just walked into the outfield and was a freaking one of the best ones from the jump. Absolutely insane stuff.
Absolutely, man. And that's the thing, as winning teams that are contenders, just brush it off. You know what I mean? Pirates fans, congratulations. Unfortunately, might be the highlight for them for a long time. So I hope they enjoy it. And Skenes, like, genuinely was historically good. Again, I like making the jokes. I was I've been telling people lately, like, if Jackson Merrill is just dating Paige Beckers, maybe the vote is unanimous in his favor. Like, I like making the jokes, but overall, when I start hearing things like lowest ERA for a 21-year-old since 1878 or whatever the heck, I think it was 1913 in actuality. Like it's okay, guys. And again, it took a historic season. It's a little bit similar to when Aaron Judge beat Shohei Ohtani for the MVP award, where it was like it took a historic performance from Aaron Judge in order to do that. So I think that we should just appreciate that. Sports in a good spot when it comes to talent, man. Yeah. Talent is just not going away, and it's sick to watch. Absolutely.
Yeah, and talking about youngsters with a lot of hope for their future, there is maybe soon to be reunited Padre that had all the hope in the world, that has one of the most intriguing free agent cases in Jurickson Profar. We're going to talk about what his free agency means if either of these two teams are going to be a landing spot, and our most intriguing free agents of this class, right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $5. If you bet $5, you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now we're talking about some youngsters with some hope. This guy is no longer a youngster, but finally actualizing his talent, having a career year. Jurickson Profar, his first All-Star season at age 31, many, many moons after he made his debut in a glorious fashion, hitting a home run in Cleveland. Just, sending my hopes skyrocketing for Jurickson Profar. And I never gave up. I never gave up on Jurickson Profar as an All-Star, and my God, did it feel so good to be vindicated. But now he's a free agent again after signing if it wasn't Kirby Yates as the best dollar for dollar signing last year, I think it's got to be Jurickson Profar. I think Profar was actually better because he had a better season, and he cost, a fourth of what Kirby Yates made. And I'm curious as to what do you make of this Profar season? Are there going to be a bunch of suitors, throwing a bunch of long-term deals? He's heading into his age 32 season. He hasn't really done this before, but there's always been some hope on him. I mean, what do you think teams are making of what he did this year?
Firstly, I will say a lot of connections between our two teams, Kirby Yates, former Padre. And I will say that Kirby Yates, to segue into Profar, unlike Profar, Kirby Yates has actually been like genuinely elite and incredible before. Not that this was expected at all, but is amazing. And I loved your Kirby memes throughout the year. They were fantastic. I should have worn my Kedia Kirby sweater. Reading from Fangraphs real quick, one of the writers there, they were mentioning career year, came out of nowhere. It was ridiculous. He chased less, made contact more frequently. 1-2 punch, opposed to his lowest swinging strike rate since 2016 and the highest barrel rate of his career. And he basically only had like 1 month that was a little bit off. And as he says here, trying to figure out what Profar will do next feels more or less impossible. Just be better at everything isn't something you see every day. And the analysis here is simultaneously simple and baffling. If he continues to set new career standards across the board in nearly aspect of the game, he's an all-star. If he reverts to career norms, he's a role player. So my take so far has been that there are more tangible things that Profar did, a better swing, one that's just more sharper to the ball. He's always had pretty good plate discipline skills. Like, I think that's actually the only thing that kept him in the league. Yeah, in a lot of ways, because they were like, this guy at least can take pitches.
Yeah, like he knew the strike zone incredibly well. Like, even when all the other tools, when the physical tools, degraded, like in the intangibles and like the knowledge of the strike zone, that's something that never goes away. I think that definitely kept him afloat for sure.
And I mean, it's just like in this chase, whiff, strikeout, walk percentage, all in the 90th percentile. Like, unlike, I think that the common player that people will bring up, rightfully so, is Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger had now Cody Bellinger literally won an MVP and rookie there. Like, he was good, but fell off a cliff. I mean, one of the worst offensive outfielders in the sport, and one of the worst outfielders in the sport in general, that has a resurgent season with the Cubs. And a lot of people were saying, I don't know, man, weighted on base of 370, expected of 320. Like, that's a crazy discrepancy. And what happened? He wasn't very good. And you know how we know that even more? Accepted the option and decided to stay with the Cubs and not test free agency. So, like, that's fair. But I think that there were tangible things about Profar, whether it be the on-base skills. And also, there were things that did stay the same. He's still not a very good defensive player. So that part probably isn't going to change.
Which is
but with him,
wild.
Yeah, I know,
given
right?
his history. I mean, the fall off. I mean, he was supposed to be, elite Gold Glove shortstop, and then, his shoulder just exploded. So
yeah, it's really wild. And I think that with him, better path to the ball, got a little bit more of a leg kick, better pitch recognition, swung and actually hit the ball really hard. This wasn't super lucky. His weighted on base, for everybody curious, 364, expected of 365, I believe, or vice versa, one of the two.
wow.
I just don't think this is Bellinger. But at the same time, I get being like, what if this guy just reverts to what he was before? And you know how I know that? Because it was literally the previous season. He was the worst qualified player in Major League Baseball at negative, at least according to Fangraphs, negative 1.6 wins a replacement. And it was on the Rockies. Like,
Yeah,
that should be the place
power.
where you rake. Then he went to
Yeah.
the Padres for half a season and he was like all of a sudden great again. So it's one of those things where I think the Padres are the front runners to sign him. I think that they like him more. I think he loves San Diego. I think he likes that team more. I just think that there's the connection there from Profar and Preller back to Texas, like all those sort of things. So I think he's like one of those classic free agents that's more valuable to the Padres than to other teams. We'll see what happens here. I think a 3-year deal, that's what's at least projected for him right now in terms of Fangraphs. They're projecting 3 years, 45. Okay. I think that makes sense. I think one of those years will probably be an option year, right? I think it'll be less than what Cody Bellinger got because unlike Bellinger, he does not have an MVP on his resume.
Well,
New York Times Athletics says 3 years, 48. Like, it's just, it's really hard because we've never seen this, dude. You don't stay in the league for this long, and then all of a sudden you're a 139 WRC plus player. But at the same time, like, there isn't anything, and I'm not as smart as some of the best writers we got out there, but there isn't anything of the initial warnings. It's not like his hard hit rate was bad. Mm-hmm. It's not like the expected home runs were crazy bad. The only thing that I'd expect or be more confident that will decline is his production in high leverage situations, where I believe he posted like a 360 WRC plus this year. Yes, that will probably go down. But the other stuff, I don't know, man. I think it's a really pretty decent gamble for the Padres, unless they want to go a different direction. Maybe it's Tyler O'Neill. Maybe they trade for somebody.
Tyler O'Neill would freak me out. Just a low key, also insane thing. I mean, he set career highs across the board with home runs. Not quite with doubles. He had a couple of 35 plus double seasons. But the one thing that he set a career or tied a career high in that just flummoxed me is stolen bases. Career high of 10. He had 10 without being caught in 2018. That was the first time he did it. That was with Texas, his last year in Texas. He had 10 stolen bases with 5 caught stealing in his second year of the Padres in 2021. And then he get 10 again this year with just 3 times caught stealing. I mean, I absolutely love Jurickson Profar. He's obviously a great clubhouse guy. I mean, I know that I'm sure he means the world to the Padres. I'm sure there will be other teams that are checking in on him, but I think you're right that he is a case of this guy is just more valuable for San Diego than he is for anybody else. And I mean, it got to the point where after last year, I was like, this guy's going to sign. He's not even going to get a major league deal. I mean, I was just like, proud of him as someone who's been a fan of him for the longest time. Of like the fact that he came back from those injuries, of all the derailments of everything, of being the guy. I mean, the Rangers traded Ian Kinsler away so that they could open up a spot for him. Granted, they did it for Prince Fielder, and it didn't really work out for them. But who could have seen Mr. Iron Man having a career-ending injury like 2 years into his career, and then also having a career-altering injury to Jurickson Profar, who just like, it was like, this guy was an elite defensive shortstop. Now he's a second baseman. Now he's kind of a bad left fielder. Okay. Just the fact that he carved out a 3-year or a 10-year career, I was like, okay, good for him. Even if no one really wants him, and that's the end of his stop, which I thought it was after 2023. Then he signs that 1-year deal with the Padres and has this resurgence. I could not be more over the moon for Jurickson Profar, who, if not for the next guys we're going to talk about, actually maybe even more so than the next guys we're going to talk about, could be the most intriguing free agent on this market. Coming up, we're going to talk about who our most intriguing free agents are right after this. Okay, we are back with the crossover edition, Locked On Rangers, Locked On Padres. Javi, I know you have your most intriguing free agent. I have mine. I have the one that I'm thinking the most about. And then I have kind of 3 answers that I'm a little bit cheating. I'll end up picking one. But you teased me before we started recording. You said my most intriguing free agent is going to piss you off. And I have been dying to know who it is. I will let you start. Who is your most intriguing free agent?
First of all, I agree on the Profar. Like, you could have easily put Profar for this. And also, for what it's worth, my personally favorite single season I've ever watched any baseball player ever have. But I've got 2. I've got one from the top tier group and one that's a little bit under the radar, massively under the radar. And frankly, I think that he shouldn't be. It's Alex Bregman for me among the top tier ones. I know you hate him, and I get it. My thing with Bregman is, he's a little bit of the Chris Bryant thing where a lot of his craziest seasons happened immediately, right? Like, he had this MVP quality, and in my opinion, should have won the MVP back in 2019. That's just me. I think he should have.
Whoever, I'm not looking at it. I know off the top of my head that I loved the 2019 AL MVP, Mike Trout. It's Mike Trout.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that it matters that, as we were talking about in segment 1, I like that his at-bats actually mattered, and Mike Trout's didn't. But when it comes
every
to
Mike Trout at-bat matters to me.
This is also fair. This is also very fair. This is also fair. I didn't mean it like that, Mike. I didn't mean it like that.
Actually, it should have been Marcus Semien. That's there we go. That's where I was going with that.
It's a decent one too. I think that with Bregman, you look at his early career, right? This is a guy, 4.7 WAR his second year when he basically played full time for the first time. 7.9, 8.3. He's pretty decent in 2020. Then 2.1, not great, but then 5.4, 4.5. So he hasn't had like that MVP quality season again. I don't know if that part is gone. I think it is. Because if you look at his WRC plus every year, it's been going down. But he's a great glove. Always been a great glove. He's usually a great walk guy. I don't know why his walk rate went down this year. He actually had like not a great contract year. It was a little bit carried by his defense and a little bit of home run luck. But even still, there's just something steady about him. And I'm just really curious because there are a lot of teams that could use him. I know that my friend is like, who's a Philadelphia Phillies fan, is like all in on trading Bohm, getting Crochet in a package deal that's been floating around a little bit, then going to sign Bregman because their owner is on some Jordan Belfort, like, I simply do not care nonsense right now. Like, throw all the money out there. And yeah, it's great. Happy for him. And they're having a meeting with Juan Soto. I think that with Bregman, it's also interesting because if the Astros were to bring him back, that would signal that they're not ready to rebuild, which means a whole lot of other things, not just for your division, but a lot of the whole American League and all of baseball, right? So that could be interesting. I don't know. There's just something about him, man, because I could really see both things happening. I could see him leaving, and this could be another Xander Bogaerts, where it's just like, oh God, like, he's going to probably be a good player, right? Like, he'll be a good player, but he's not going to be worth the money. And that's a stretch for Bogaerts, I will say. But with him, or is it like, wow, are we overthinking this? This guy's going to be awesome. He's going to be a 5-win player for a while.
I'm
because
hoping
of those on-base skills that don't tend to. I'm not as scared about on-base pitch recognition, contact skills dissipating as much as I worry about power dissipating. But that's just me.
Well, he's also played in the Mickey Mouse Park for his entire career. I mean, he's had 2 seasons where he's had more than 30 home runs. One of them was he had 31 home runs, and the other was 2019, where the ball was just juiced to all crap, and he only had 41 that year. Only 41. Still pretty nice season. He's an interesting player. I'm hoping that either he goes and signs elsewhere and is amazing, or signs a massive, massive deal and just falls off a cliff for Houston. Those are my 2 hopes for him.
Could totally see it. And then the other one that I wanted to mention is like a meme, but I really think that this is just a rare opportunity. And like, don't get me wrong, it wouldn't shock me if this is a disaster, but it's my man, who is the only player I've ever seen to get injured in a fight and not actually be anywhere near the fight. Mr. Eloy Jimenez of the Chicago White Sox and Baltimore Orioles.
Okay.
I'm just so in. Now, here's what I think. If you're a contender, no, I don't think you should do this if you're a contender, because the downside is you just waste your DH spot. Maybe he's a little bit of a clubhouse thing. But I think with the right team, you can fix that stuff. And how often is it that you have available on the market for nothing, too, by the way, a 27-year-old who is a top-level prospect, and by the way, when he was healthy, was doing that. This guy who had 31 home runs, obviously, in 49 games. Or I'm sorry. Wow, I'm looking at Bregman. My bad. He had 31 home runs in 122 games his rookie year. 115 WRC plus that year. Next year, barely played, but 138 WRC plus. Next year, 100. Year after that, 2022. His best season, hilariously enough, 143 WRC plus. And then last year, 100. He's at minimum a league average kind of offensive player. And again, he's 27. You don't have to give him anything. I just don't think players like this come around that often. Someone could sign him to a one-year deal, and it's going to be a disaster. And we're like, wow, this guy is, not to be mean, a Nomar Mazara, where like it passed, it's over. You know what I mean? I get it. Nationals,
I see the vision. Like,
you know, like if you're
buy low
the
DH candidate, and if he pops off, then you trade him, you get some real capital. Yeah, I think
I just trust, and also, oh, he's a bad attitude, this and that. Well, you know what? Maybe you can not pin all of it. Don't get me wrong.
I say pin all of it.
Some of it on the White Sox. Like, that's a disastrous team. That is a team that has players that had to be talked into attending their teammates' reintroduction ceremony after recovering from cancer. Yeah. So, like, that team and clubhouse and everything is a mess, right? Okay. So that's my pitch. I actually really think Eloy Jimenez would be fun.
All right, now shut up. It's my time to talk. The free agent I'm thinking the most about is Nathan Eovaldi. I think he's really intriguing. I think I've talked about him pretty much every day of the offseason. I think he's really important for the Rangers. Of the guys in the highest tier that I think are getting the most money, the one that I don't know what to do with, I would be terrified and also intrigued for my team to touch him. I don't think they're going to. Anthony Santander. I'm like, this guy has been so solid and dependable, but also I'm terrified he's going to fall off a cliff because he is like all power, but he's been such a consistent power hitter, and he's going to get a big old fat check, and he's a switch hitter, and like, he's not horrible in the outfield. He's not great. He is a little older.
Yeah, he doesn't kill you, but he's not a plus. He's not a plus. Yeah,
you throw him in left field, he's fine. But he's going to get paid by someone. And it's going to be like, wow, Baltimore, how'd you let that walk away? Because I don't think he's going back there. But also like I'm okay with letting that walk away. In terms of
go ahead, sorry.
In terms of a pitcher, Yusei Kikuchi, I am fascinated by. Do you think that you can keep fixing him like the Astros did? Or is he just the guy he was before? You can be like, hey, just go do what you did with Houston. Just keep doing that. I would be very curious I think he's going to get a big old payday. I would be intrigued if it was the Astros. If the Astros go big and they sign Kikuchi to a big old deal, and then they also sign Bregman to a big old deal, they could have 3 really, really, really ugly looking contracts as soon as like 2026, and like just yeet their window closed really quickly, which I'm sure, as I'm saying that, Rangers fans are just salivating, thinking about that possibility. And then the last one.
Oh, go for it.
That is, I don't know what to make of this guy. I would be fascinated if I were not a contending team, not a fan of a contending team whose entire infield is set for the next 3-4 years. But Yohan Moncada, he's a guy who was, such an intriguing young prospect. Yeah,
a little bit of the White Sox thing again. Okay,
exactly. I mean, he's a guy who had his peak.
How funny would that be, man?
He had some incredible years. I mean, back in 2019, I know it was the juice ball year, but 25 home runs there, had a 5.2 WAR season. He plays decent third base defense. I mean, he has been just sucked into the mire that is the White Sox. He's been in the big leagues since 2016. He's been around a while. And I think there's something in there. He's a switch hitter. He does strike out a little bit. Doesn't quite walk as much as you would like, but I don't know. I think there's something in there. There's something to be fixed. Getting away from the White Sox is got to be good for anybody's psyche, let alone their actual development. So it might just be the case where everyone's like, nah, this guy just kind of sucks and has sucked, and it's not the White Sox fault. But I have a feeling like there's something in there because he's heading into his age 30 season. So I think there's still something in there. And I don't think the Rangers are going to be anywhere near it, but I am really intrigued to see to what kind of contract he gets and where he might end up.
He's put up a 5.2 win season before. He's put up a 3.7 win season before. And I am all in on this only because how funny would it be if both of these guys are like not even great? If he puts up a 3-win season and Eloy puts up a 2.5 win season,
huge win.
That would like for sheer how funny would that be? Come on, guys. I know our listeners are all in. You guys, we sold them. I know that we sold them. 100% we've sold them on this. I think that would be great, man. I really think it would be a lot of fun. And I think that anything that makes the White Sox look even worse is pretty entertaining these days. And back to your Santander point, it's funny. Like yesterday's episode, I literally talked about him because Padres Twitter and some media and stuff have been talking about, is he a possibility if they lose Profar? Fun fact, Santander's 44 home runs are the most in MLB history for a player that had an OPS under 815, which is like, first of all, rules. Let me be clear.
So weird.
He's a home run, go boom. But that adds on to my fear, which is that is it possible that this is a 30 home run player that will only be worth 1 win? That's the fear. That like all that power, and because you're slow, because you have no on-base skills, because your defense doesn't add anything, you're just kind of like, man, I hope we get you in the playoffs. Like that would be great. I think like a contending team, the opposite of Eloy, like that might actually make more sense, right? To be like on a good team that's like, holy crap, you're a 6-hitter. You're a 7-hitter that could just make this a 4 game.
That's an ideal 6 of like a bunch of home runs. Hope some guys are on base ahead of
like
them.
A team like Detroit, I don't know if I'd want to do that. You know what I mean? I'd be a little bit nervous.
If I were Detroit, I'd be scared to give anybody a big contract after the Javi Baez fiasco. But this Javi is no fiasco. Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. Thank you so much for joining me, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to this crossover edition of Locked On Rangers and Locked On Padres. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.